Wraith Squadron grew into one of the most famous and elite military units in the Star Wars galaxy, and the Battle of Folor, 7 years after A New Hope, was one of the first crucial steps in their journey from a band of misfits to inventive veterans. Folor was a moon of the planet Commodore in the galactic region known as the Colonies, between the core and the Inner Rim, and it was home to a hidden New Republic fighter staging and training facility. This base was discovered by Admiral Trigit of Warlord Zsinj's empire, and he quickly began plans to assault the base, bolstered by confidence from other recent victories. Trigit took his flagship, the Imperial Star Destroyer Implacable, to the planet. He'd hoped to begin his attack unnoticed, falsely registering his ship as a yacht in the Commodore dockyards, before being granted permission to partake in live-fire exercises on the moon itself. Agents on the base had luckily already managed to break into Commodore's communications, which they were monitoring, and were able to figure out that with the name Implacable and with the size of Orbital Dock 301, where it was assigned, they were likely dealing with an Imperial attack, and the commanders of Folor began to plan for an evacuation. A decoy base had already been set up on the opposite side of the moon, and was successfully used to draw in Implacable, giving time for the evacuation to begin. The New Republic had 3 Gallifrey transports to evacuate, and 3 fighter squadrons, Wraith, Blue, and Gold, Wraith Squadron being X-Wings, Blue and Gold being A-Wings. Gold Squadron was split into 3 flights in order to escort the transports, the first of which was able to leave while the decoy base was distracting Trigit. Trigit, finally realizing he'd been tricked when they picked up on the departure of the shuttle from the opposite end of the moon, began the trek around to the real location of the base. This gave enough time for the second transport, Bright Nebula, to lift off as well, leaving only Borleus, the third transport whose engines were malfunctioning. Commander Wedge Antilles of Wraith Squadron knew they needed to buy time, so he sent out 4 scouts, including Callan Runt of Wraith's X-Wings and 2 A-Wings from Blue Squadron, to fly down a massive, treacherous canyon known as the Pig Trough. They would scout out the incoming forces, including the ISD and its TIE Fighter complement, to determine where they'd pass over the trench. With the information supplied by these 4's dangerous mission, the remainder of Wraith and Blue were able to emerge from the canyon unexpectedly, immediately wiping out 4 of the 12 enemy TIE interceptors. This initial pass was devastating for the Empire. Despite starting with nearly 3-to-1 odds, the element of surprise had cost the Empire 21 total fighters, compared to only 2 losses for the New Republic, though Trigit believed the war of attrition would ultimately go in their favor. These initial successes for the New Republic, though encouraging, were not enough to buy Borleus enough time to lift off. Between this and wanting to prevent Implacable from being able to reinforce the TIE fighters against their squad mates, Kel, Runt, and the 2 A-Wings launched a new plan. Their secondary goal of potentially finding a way to damage Implacable themselves wasn't going to work, but they believed they could trick Implacable and Trigit once again. The A-Wings flew closely together to essentially merge their sensor signatures into that of a larger ship, while both they and the X-Wings switched to an encryption type they knew the Empire had already recently broken for their comms. They then began to impersonate the Millennium Falcon and Rogue Squadron, leaking comms that would make Trigit believe these highly valuable targets were flying away from the base through the canyon in the opposite direction. Trigit fell for his second trick in one day, abandoning the base assault for another wild bantha chase. This distraction accomplished both of its goals. The dogfight continued to go in the favor of Rogue and Blue Squadrons, reducing the TIE fighters by a further half at the expense of only 3 more A-Wings, while also allowing Borleus time to fix its engines and lift off. Trigit, furious at having been tricked yet again, began firing upon the canyons, though too late to catch the fleeing X and A-Wings. At the end of the day, while the New Republic did lose access to the base, they managed to inflict heavy fighter losses on the Empire while losing relatively few pilots themselves, additionally giving Wraith Squadron valuable flight training which they would put to good use against Warlord Zsinj in the future. That's going to do it for today's battle breakdown. Not the most actual combat animation, I know, but handling ground-based stuff is a new skill, and as with the older breakdowns and animations, I'm trying to learn at least one new thing per battle and campaign. This one is part of a larger series on the hunt for Zsinj, so the plan is to do 5 or 6 of those battles with their own breakdowns and animations, and then finally put it all together with a longer video on the campaign itself. If you want to see them come out faster, consider sharing the video around somewhere, leaving a like, or subscribing for more. The better these do, the easier it is to make time to work on them because they do take quite a bit of work. Either way, thank you for watching, I hope you've enjoyed the breakdown, and I hope to see you next time.